Make a table of values for the function, then graph. This function in particular is an exponential function because x is up here in the exponent for that base 2. There's no real good or bad points to use necessarily for making a table. So a nice default set of numbers would be to just start with -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and then shift them depending on if we have a horizontal shift. We have an h value on this particular function of +4 because we want to say the opposite of that. If my h value is +4, that will help counter that -4. So we're going to add 4 to all these numbers. +4, +4, +4. Okay, -2 +4, -1 +4. Those will give me the x numbers that I would rather use so that it fits my table much nicer. So that would be +2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a pretty predictable pattern that way. For the y's, we calculate the y's based on taking one of those red x numbers and plugging it into the function where I have a blank spot right there. So I'm going to write all those out for you here in just a second. There's kind of my template for plugging in all my numbers here. I'm going to plug in all the red numbers like I said. So I'm going to plug in a 2, then a 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you were to type in each one of those rows into your calculator one at a time and get the output value for that, for the y number, you would get the following outputs. For that first line, you would get -5, and then -4, -2, 2, and 10. It starts taking off very fast. All right, we need to put those order pairs on the graph. Before we do that, though, we should note one more thing on here. With these functions, there's something called an asymptote, and that is dependent on what the k value of this function is. In this case, k is going to be -6. K is not the opposite. It is what you get. All right. That particular value means that we are not going to cross the value of y equals -6. So I'm going to take this dotted line. I'm going to draw that dotted line across -6. This is my boundary. I will not get any lower than this particular spot for this graph. When we put the order pairs, you'll kind of see what that looks like. Let me put these dots on the graph here. 2, -5. 3, -4. 4, -2. 5, +2. And then 6, 10. It doesn't really look like much, but this graph is starting to curve kind of down and left, if you want to say it that way, but we will not get any lower than that green line. So when we draw this curve, I want to be sure that I stay above the green line, but also sort of make a curve as I go along here. So do your best here. I need to stay above the green line. Kind of gets like really flat against it, and then curves and goes up very fast. And there you have it. Make your table, put your horizontal asymptote on the graph, and do your best to draw a curve that does not cross that axis.